Tropical storm Debby is intensifying into a hurricane as it approaches Florida, expected to bring strong winds, storm surge, and flooding to parts of Florida, as well as historic rainfall across the southeast. Also, Debby is supposed to make landfall in a similar area as Hurricane Idalia last year and Hurricane Hermine back in 2016. In this video, we'll be looking at the latest information on Tropical Storm Debby. Here's the National Hurricane Center. The latest advisory has Tropical Storm Debby at 65 miles an hour. The minimum pressure is 992 millibars, and it's moving north at 12 miles per hour. And, it's expected to become a hurricane over the next few hours, and it's going to be a pretty impactful system, and the winds and the storm surge is a big part of that, but also the extreme amounts of rain, because this storm is actually going to stall, as we'll see on the cone. And they're expecting potentially historic heavy rainfall and catastrophic flooding, especially in Georgia and South Carolina through Friday morning. So this system is going to be going for several days. And also a lot of storm surge along the coast of Florida, and hurricane conditions. Even stronger winds will probably extend even further into Georgia with at least tropical storm conditions. Here's the cone for Debby. It actually shows right now there's tropical storm force winds already kind of impacting the Tampa area. You actually have you have tropical storm warnings along the kind of the west coast of Florida. And then hurricane warnings that go kind of along the Big Bend region where the storm is supposed to make landfall. And apparently, this is going a bit slower than what it was looking like from a couple days ago. And so this will hit more so late morning, early afternoon tomorrow or Monday. And so it has a bit more time over the water for it to intensify, and it has intensified pretty quick, and I think they're thinking it could hit around 85 to 90 miles an hour, apparently, and so, we'll see what they do with this, but actually the cone, once it makes landfall on Monday afternoon, then, it does weaken down as it goes further inland across southeastern Georgia, but then it kind of might go back offshore potentially by Wednesday, and also into Thursday before it goes further inland into South Carolina on Friday. And actually, this part of the track is more uncertain as to where exactly it'll go. But the thing is, it's going to stall, and it's going to dump a lot of rain. And so the thing is, it's actually, the cone has actually slowed down quite a bit. If we actually compare it from the previous cones, especially from the last couple of cones, they've actually changed it. Especially this one. This was the previous cone, and now this is the current one. They've actually shortened it a bit. So this could actually even be stalling a little more. And they're thinking that it's going to hit somewhere, between 8 a.m. Monday and 2 p.m. Monday. And some of the hurricane models are showing it hits, pretty much around, I think could be around 8 to 11 a.m., but this is the newest cone, probably, just before noon is when it will probably hit. But the tropical storm force winds, this is the earliest arrival time of the tropical storm force winds moving into the Big Bend area by 8 p.m., which is only, in just a couple hours. And then Monday morning for further inland in Florida, and even in Georgia, potentially. So there's that, and then those tropical storm force winds, as this is, a tropical storm as it moves across, like, southeastern Georgia and possibly the Carolinas. Some of those tropical storm force winds extend out a bit further. But the wind is one thing, but the rain is there's going to be a lot of rain with this. This is showing just the total amount of rain, 16 to 20 inches across parts of South Carolina, like around Charleston. I think there was actually a small area of 20 to 30 inches potentially with this, and I think that's an extreme amount of rain. And even 16 to 20 inches is pretty bad. I think Charleston is sort of notorious for flooding pretty easily, even in weaker hurricanes and tropical systems. So, and this could be apparently, historic amounts of rain if this storm really stalls. That could be pretty bad. And then you actually have, a 12 to 16 inches going through the Big Bend of Florida, southeastern kind of Georgia, and also South Carolina, and then a bigger 8 to 12 inches around that. This is where it's supposed to be, a really high amount of rain as this stalls, and especially on the eastern and kind of northeastern part of the storm is where most of that rain is. And the Weather Prediction Center actually has a high risk of flooding, a huge high risk of flooding that goes all the way from the Big Bend of Florida across kind of the eastern part of Georgia and South Carolina, and Charleston, Savannah, some of those areas are deep inside the highest risk of flooding. So there's going to be, it really looks like there's going to be some extreme flooding from Tropical Storm or Hurricane Debby. And even the storm surge, there's going to be quite a bit of storm surge in the Big Bend of Florida, which is sort of, I guess, pretty susceptible to storm surge, but 6 to 10 feet kind of near where it makes landfall. And then we have, maybe 5 to 8 feet a little bit further down, but then the Tampa Bay area, which actually is already seeing some storm surge apparently, on this kind of west coast of Florida, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, maybe 2 to 4 feet, and then also even 2 to 4 feet of storm surge possible along the east coast of Georgia and South Carolina. So that, just adds to the flooding. You have the storm surge along the coast, and then, a lot of river flooding and flash flooding further inland with just the continuous amounts of rain. This is the infrared satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Debby, and it's starting to get more hurricane-like. This is the live radar from the storm, and it actually has an eye on radar, but a lot of rain. It has a lot of like special marine warnings kind of on the east coast of Florida, which could, turn into tornado warnings, because there's actually a tornado watch over a big section of Florida for the potential for tornadoes with this, which, that tends to happen with any tropical storm that makes landfall. You get tornadoes, some more than others, but there's that. And then spaghetti models are showing that, it pretty much, the landfall location is pretty certain that it's going to hit somewhere between Alligator Point and Fish Creek. That's basically what it looks like, especially Appalachia Bay. And that's pretty much what all the models are showing. But then, once it goes somewhere over southeastern Georgia, then it kind of just stalls out, and then it could go off in any direction. But, most of the models are taking it somewhere around eastern Georgia and near the coast of South Carolina or offshore. So, it might be able to re-intensify a bit or not. And then some of the hurricane models are actually showing it meandering more and just going in weird directions. But the landfall location is pretty certain that it's going to hit somewhere kind of in this general area, and then kind of go kind of north and east from there. The intensity also, it's going to intensify. A lot of these models are showing it kind of getting to a low-end hurricane. Even we'll see some of the hurricane models showing the same thing, but I think it'll be able to intensify more than that. I think, 80, 85 miles an hour at least would make sense, especially since it's going over, some of the warmest sea surface temperatures in the Gulf. It's like upper 80s to low 90s. It's going to make landfall, late morning into early afternoon tomorrow, but still, I think, it definitely has a decent amount of time to continue to intensify into a hurricane, and then, we'll see how far it goes. The rapid intensification model takes it to about 90 miles an hour before landfall. We'll see what happens there, but then it goes down. But a lot of the models do keep it at a tropical storm for the next at least 4 to 5 days, and then it just depends on if it is able to stay more offshore or if it goes further inland. But the wind is not so much of a big deal at this point. It's going to be just that extreme amount of rain, and the storm stalling is going to be the big problem with this. This is some of the hurricane models. This is the HWRF showing 979 millibars, which you'd think that's a decent Category 1 hurricane. And then it kind of goes across Georgia, and then it's just raining, and then it just stops. And then it kind of goes back down. This is the HWRF showing it goes back over Florida and then out into the Gulf again, and then goes over New Orleans as a tropical storm or something. It's like, wow, that probably won't happen, but who knows. And this is showing it gets to 70 knots. They're going to update this model in a little bit, but, I think it could get a bit stronger than this. So we'll see, but then it's just kind of a tropical storm or even a tropical depression, but then it tries to intensify a little bit back to a tropical storm before it hits Louisiana. And then the thing is that it's showing this actually hits probably at 5 a.m., even 8 a.m. Eastern time. So that's a bit sooner than what some of the other stuff is showing. Like the HAFS-B is showing that, yeah, it hits at still like 5, but then it does slow down a bit. So this is at 8 a.m. This is 11 a.m. It officially makes landfall. So, we'll see what happens with that. And then, yeah, this is just showing that, a lot of the models are pretty confident on where it's going to make landfall. But pretty much it's like, yeah, we're going to have hurricane conditions along the Big Bend of Florida, a lot of storm surge, and then after that, it's really just the rain that's going to be the biggest problem, and that's the HAFS-A model, kind of still showing it meandering, but it's more so the rain. This is the HAFS-A parent model showing at least, a foot of rain, even closer to like, 20 inches of rain in some areas, even in Florida from this tropical storm. So, definitely a ton of rain, and that's why they have that high risk of flooding. So this is going to be a massive flooding situation. Here's a look at the total rain accumulation from Windy, and this is the Euro model. Over the next 5 days, it's even worse. This is showing over the next 5 days on the Euro model, 15 inches of rain, especially along the coast of South Carolina, over Charleston, so that's going to be a big problem. And, we have 6 to 10 inches across most of Florida and Georgia, but especially it looks like South Carolina, depending on where this stalls, but it looks like in this area is going to be the worst amount of rain if it just keeps raining and raining and raining. And at least 10 to 15 inches of rain, maybe even, who knows, 20 inches of rain. This is the NAM model showing up to a foot of rain in Georgia, and this is only over the next 60 hours, even showing potentially, 15 inches of rain near where this makes landfall. And Tallahassee is actually on the center to the west side of the storm, which is, there's actually less rain and more drier air and stuff like that on the western side of the storm. So it is kind of loaded to the north and east. So that's also another thing to note. But But yeah, definitely a ton of rain, especially over this whole area. The wind gusts, pretty intense, especially as it starts making landfall. This is kind of around 5 a.m. These are wind gusts of 103 miles an hour, according to the NAM model. This is not a hurricane model, but this is the NAM model, kind of showing 103 miles an hour as this moves in, and then even still wind gusts approaching 80 miles an hour over Tallahassee. So, this is going to be the area where you see the strongest winds are definitely going to be between, that Alligator Point, even over towards Apalachicola, but especially between Alligator Point, Carabel, and Steinhatchee. And so, having those 100 to 105 mile an hour wind gusts, it's pretty intense. And then still some pretty strong wind gusts approaching, 70 miles an hour, even as it goes further inland. But it does look like this storm could fall apart pretty quick as it goes inland. But even still, 65 mile an hour wind gusts in Georgia, and then the wind gusts do spread out with that rain and everything. Still 50 miles an hour offshore South Carolina. By Tuesday, the center really gets more spread out. But that's the wind gusts on the NAM model. I think the NAM is pretty good. The HRRR is still showing some stronger wind gusts, but this is on the eastern side of the storm. But I do think what the NAM is showing probably makes the most sense. The total wind accumulation, just showing where the strongest winds are, is, pretty much, and this is on the NAM model, pretty much showing, the strongest winds, over 100 miles an hour right on the coast, so it's going to be, especially right on the coast here, anywhere from 85 to 90 miles an hour winds, even possibly over 100 miles an hour. This information could still change, so definitely you'll want to make sure you're paying attention to the latest updates from the National Hurricane Center and, any information from local officials. But this is just kind of what the models are showing right now, where those winds are, and it's all that rain as well. And so that's basically what's supposed to happen with this hurricane. It's just, some of that, wind and storm surge, definitely a huge risk for that. Power outages, of course. It's going to be, definitely a lot of power outages with the wind and everything. And then this could just turn into just a mess over the Carolinas if it just stalls. So that's what it looks like it's going to do. It's just going to stall and then produce a bunch of rain across the southeast. Historic rainfall, actually. And so we're looking at Tropical Storm Debby, and then after that there's another disturbance. It only has like a 10 to 20% chance of forming in the next 2 to 7 days. We'll see what happens with that. There's the GFS with Debby, and it, basically the GFS is showing the same thing. This is going into, Monday morning and afternoon, and then going into Tuesday. It just storm just kind of stays there and then it meanders. This is going all the way into Thursday, and then Friday. Now, even the GFS is kind of taking it, meandering it west. So that's kind of an interesting that it doesn't keep going east and kind of drifts west, and then it goes east as it gets picked up by a frontal system. This is going all the way. This is still there next week. So this could be, if the GFS and some of the other models are correct, this could stay producing rain for a really long time. This is going, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, So, still rain for the next, 8 or so days. That's 8 to 9 days. That's a lot. The total rainfall just on the GFS showing, at least 1 to 2 feet of rain. So, definitely a lot of flooding there. And the GFS not really showing that second disturbance really, or this additional storm really doing much. So, we'll see. Yeah. Definitely Hurricane Debby's, or Tropical Storm Debby, which will soon become Hurricane Debby, is definitely a very significant situation with the storm surge, wind, flooding, and that extreme rain and flooding as it stalls over the southeast. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, share the video, comment below, and please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already for more weather information. Extreme Weather Zone out.